The candidates that will be taking place in tonight's forum in alphabetical order by seat number are Eric Anisco, Deidre Peterson, Marilyn Vogler, Joe Schmidt, Bailey Cyrick, Tracy Moore, and Bob Rogers. And yes, I just alphabetized them in my head. That's why it took so long. The rules for tonight's forum are as follows. The candidates will each have 2 minutes for an introductory speech with a 30-second warning. They'll then sit at one of these 8 tables, which they've already been assigned, and speak with voters on various topics for 8 minutes. At 7 minutes, I'll give a 1-minute warning. At the end of 8 minutes, they'll have 1 minute to move counterclockwise. This gives voters a chance to ask about issues that will personally affect them. Voters, stay seated. Only candidates will move. After 8 rounds, we'll be through and back at the beginning. So to summarize, 8 minutes at a table, 1 minute to move. I'll keep the time, and I am very strict. Ready? Let's start with our first.
Cheryl, are you?
Yes. No, I am actually 50.
On the clock. Are you 12?
Am I 12?
On the clock.
Yes, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yes, I'm 12. Thank you. Wow, I'm lost. Okay. So, who is going to start? So, we will start with Eric Anisco. Eric.
Well, this is the second time I've had to go first, so. Oops. My name's Eric Anisco. I'm a resident and business owner in the city of Shelton. Yes, the city has made progress, but we can do better. Working with other agencies, prioritize our dangerous and gravel roads, support our police by adding, my plan, 6 police officers in the next 3 years, 2 a year, supporting businesses instead of creating obstacles, supporting the nonprofits in town that take care of our homeless. We got a lot of nonprofits that do a wonderful job. I think that we should support them somehow. And I lost my place. Affordable housing starts with the city. All of us are here tonight to be your voice for the new city council. I'm asking for your trust and elect me to the City of Shelton Council. Most important, please vote. We can all do better. I offer common sense voting. If it don't add up, I won't vote for it. Sorry. In the end, 7 people will make decisions on how we spend your money. Common sense goes a long ways. We can't solve every problem, but I will be your voice and your vote and do my best. There's a lot of exciting things coming to Shelton.
1 minute.
Oh, geez, I'm done. There's a lot of exciting things coming to Shelton. We have a veterans tiny homes project coming. We have a YMCA coming. There's just a lot of exciting things, and I want to be a part of that future. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Marilyn Vogler.
I'm not sure what kind of alphabetical order that is, but that's fine. Hi, I'm Marilyn Vogler. Many of you know these things about me, but I'll go through some of them again. I retired and moved to Shelton almost 7 years ago. Traded Michigan's snow for Shelton's rain, and I thoroughly love it here. I immediately got involved in community committees and affairs. It's what I do. I've been active in whatever community I've lived in almost all of my life. In Shelton, it's been parks, aging issues, the library, civil service, housing, poverty issues, and I'm currently on the County Planning Advisory Commission. I bring experience as a reference librarian, as a teacher of K through graduate school. I've been a university administrator. I've had experience managing a very large budget, a lot of
see folks who are considering moving here and what they need to make this a great place for them and their families. So I was really excited when the city made the vote to move to a council form of government. As someone who works full-time, I could never have participated in such a meaningful way before, and I would really look forward to the opportunity to speak with each of you about how I can represent you on that council. Thank you so much for your time.
Next, we have Joe Schmidt.
Good evening. I'm really excited to be here tonight and slightly apprehensive because I'm reasonably confident this will be the most amount of dates I've ever been on in my entire life. But I've been in public service ever since I've been an adult. After I graduated high school, I enlisted in the military, met my wife. We moved to Shelton. We wanted to start a family. And I got a job at the state DOT and have been working in the public sector at the DOT ever since. Public service is important and community service is important. Shortly after I moved to Shelton, one of my neighbors was talking to me about the fire department and that they're hurting for people and they need a lot of people. And I was like, well, I'm an able-bodied dude. I can do that. And I was in the military, so I signed up and became a volunteer firefighter in Shelton. And I quickly realized how important in these small communities having a collective group of people who care and who are here and are there for the community, how important that really is. And I'm looking to take the past 15 years of working in the public sector and bring that to Shelton for my family, for my neighbors, for you all folks here. I'm very, very happy that you're here and involved in the process. And I look to bring the same level of effort that you're bringing here tonight to grill all of us, but bring that energy back to the City Council to make some good change and continue moving Shelton forward.
Next is Bailey Cyrek.
Hello, my name is Bailey Cyrek. I'm a recent graduate from Washington State University. I got my degree in political science, emphasis on pre-law. Currently, I manage a chiropractic office and I co-own an excavation company here in Shelton. So I do have textbook experience and real-life experience obtaining permits from the city. I moved back here right after college with the goal of starting a family here. I have friends and family here, and I genuinely just want to improve the city. So thank you, and I'll talk to you more in a second.
Next, we have Tracy Moore.
Does this one work?
No, it doesn't.
So this, I'm okay here though.
You could take it out and talk into it.
Well, okay, everybody can hear me, I hope. I think I'm unique amongst the candidates for council, and I wear my mantle as an agent of change with great pride. Because if it were not for my work, my diligence, my strength, my stubbornness, as my mom would say, we would not have a city council. We would still be stuck in the dark ages with a 3-member commission. And I'm looking forward to being part of this new change. I believe that I am unique also in my skills and in my proven abilities of leadership that I have already shown. In that I can't be bullied. Ask anybody who's tried to bully me, it won't happen. I'm very independent. I make all of my decisions based on what I am asked and what is the best representation from the citizens that I hear from. I'm committed wholeheartedly to the city of Shelton. I chose this for my home. I chose this as a place to raise my kids. I have worked for 30 years to make this a better place. I started in the schools, I started in my neighborhood. I've been a neighborhood activist for years. I've worked to improve our quality of life here. And as a commissioner, I made decisions and I worked as a minority vote for those things that our citizens have asked for in the way of quality of life, in the way of safe and affordable housing, in the way of walkable cities. And I will continue to do that, and I'm happy to do that. And if I see any any type of indication of unethical behavior, I've proven that I'm not afraid to confront that and question that. And I will continue to do that as well. Tracy Moore, position 7.
And last, not least, of course, is Bob Rogers.
Hi, I'm Bob Rogers, and I was hoping Cheryl would get us out of order because this is getting a little old coming last every time, but I'm good with it. I've been in Shelton about 30 years, moved here from Northeast Washington where I was a forester, moved here as an accountant, went back to school, been with Green Diamond Simpson for the 30 years until my retirement last August. I've had a history of being accountable to both superiors and having people accountable for their work to me, and I believe that's one thing that the city lacks. I've heard that doorbelling, that people want accountability both with their rates, the rate they pay for sewer, water, their tax rate. They want their elected officials to be accountable to themselves in the council, among themselves, to be responsible adults. They want them to be accountable to the citizens, and they want them to be accountable to the staff. And that's one thing I think I can bring to the council. The other thing, moving forward, the city council will have 7 members, and we each have unique gifts and skills that we'll bring. And some of the skills that I have, I think are useful for the current condition of the city, and that's financial and some operational analysis, which I think we need to move forward. We have to define where we're at in certain issues and move ahead. Until we define where we're at today, we won't be able to move ahead. So please consider me for position 7, Bob Rogers. Thank you.
Well, we actually have 23 seconds left. So we will give the candidates 1 minute to get water and to move to their tables, and we will start in 1 minute.
59, 58, 57. There's a handout like this up on the table. Mostly what it says is, my website is votevogler.com. I have assembled links to all of the candidate forums, all of the questionnaires. Several of the candidates have even given me the questionnaires they filled out for the Olympia Master Builders, which were
8 minutes
So
starts now.
votevogler.com.
8 minutes.
What questions do you have for me?
There are a list of questions I was given by the league, but if there's something that's burning in the table's mind, I think that's probably appropriate to bring up first. If not, we'll
You're
go.
rolling with those?
Okay. I'm going to skip over the first question simply because it's covered.
I don't know what any of them are, so.
Okay. How will you clear the obstacles surrounding the development of Shelton Hills? Good. That's a good pinpoint question. Specifically address the sewer issue placement to keep costs down.
As I understand the sewer issue, it's a matter of physical practicality. The sewer line is however many feet under the ground it already is. And as Craig explained it, the grading plan that Shelton Hills proposed would have buried it under an initial load of depth to the point that it would not be practical to repair it or clean it or hook up anything to it. And so it was a mix of the load on the main sewer plant having increased, and it's now at 50%, I mean at almost complete capacity. It will have more capacity once Basin 3 is finished. But the original agreement to put all of Shelton Hills sewer downtown was before the capacity left decreased. And so I think between the grading and the capacity issues, Shelton Hills is really, the onus on them is to move the sewer line, or part of it at least, to the secondary plant. I laughed initially because I told Steve Goins, he's the person working for Hall that's in charge of being the go-between. I told him it wasn't going to happen in my lifetime, and explained why. I mean, there's the sewer issue, there's the substation issue, there is the fact that they clear-cut a big swath of property and filed a grading permit back in October, and I gather haven't talked to the city about doing anything with that grading permit. They pulled out of an agreement with Ecology about cleaning up the tail drainage from Goose Lake, not the whole lake, but they own a bit of a tail. The day the public meeting was supposed to be held, Hall Equity said, nope, we're not going to accept this anymore. So on one hand, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. On the other, Steve promised me there would be progress by my birthday. And I said, Steve, you know, my birthday's 2 months away. And he thought a little bit. He said, yeah, I'll have word by your birthday. So
you maintain the city's position on this?
on the sewer line,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, you can only go so far down in the ground.
Okay, I just want to get an answer
Sewer
to
line.
the questions
Yeah.
so we can put
Yeah.
them all together. What will you look for in the character and skills of a prospective city administrator?
I will look for somebody with the breadth of knowledge about how cities operate. I really liked Ryan when I interviewed, and I was on the committee that interviewed for the last manager. I thought he had enough flexibility to move from, he was with a school district at one point, I think, and then transit, and I thought, well, he shows he's flexible. But I think we need someone with experience in human resources, with experience in finance, with experience in simply administration, day-to-day, how do you make something work, and with public works. So I want a breadth of experience. I value that in myself, and I would certainly value it in a manager.
Thank you. And be very careful how you answer this one. Is affordable housing in Shelton a priority, and how would you undertake such a project? Do you support allocation of city land to build in the tiny homes village for homeless veterans?
We desperately need affordable housing. We need affordable housing at all levels. I silently cheered when Gary Krantz said in a commission meeting a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, that we need $300 and $400 and $500 rentals in Shelton. And that's not going to happen from the private developers. And he said something to the effect that it's not going to happen from private developers. There needs to be some kind of cooperation, some kind of partnership between the city to get it to happen. Yes, I support the allocation of city land for affordable housing, certainly for very low and low-income housing. We have people that get $190 a month disability, and that's all the income they have. And they are not employable. The big myth, I think, is that, well, all of these people on the street, you know, if we clean them up, wash their clothes, get them off drugs, they can go out and get a job. But I talked to one of the city's major employers who said 5.5% unemployment, but 5% of those, but the 5% is not employable. We have a desperate need for permanent supportive housing for the 30 tiny homes. I hope you're already contemplating your second batch of 30 tiny homes. Hey, good deal. So, yeah, we also need executive housing. We're not going to get big, desirable employers here if their people don't have houses to move into. So we just need buckets of housing.
Thank you. If raising property taxes or impact fees is not a desirable option for the citizenry, how would you propose to raise revenue to pay for our current debt and rising costs?
This is the first state I've ever lived in that didn't have an income tax, a state income tax. It has taken me a while to adjust to that and the notion that, yes, cities, counties have to have revenue. The only way we get revenue is development, is buying and selling things, is harvesting our resources. We need really badly to protect Oakland Bay and our shellfishing industries. They're facing enough stress from ocean acidification and changing temperatures. We've got to do absolutely everything we can to make what we put into the bay pristine. I'm talking private septics, I'm talking the wastewater from Shelton. So, you know, we just have to be sustainable in finding the right kind of employers and building the right kind of homes. And it'll be slow. I'm hoping the city can pay off its debt on time. I don't see much chance of paying it off early.
So business growth,
Business growth.
Business growth is our way forward?
It's one of the ways. That has to be accompanied by growth in housing. It has to be accompanied by smart shepherding, smart ways we treat the environment. We've got C Street, we've got Goose Lake. We can't afford to be creating any more of those because those are expensive.
Thank you.
1 minute to move. 1 minute to move.
Counterclockwise.
So are these, each table has different questions?
No.
I think they all have the same
We
one.
all
So
have the same
if
question.
you have questions of your own when the next person comes,
Yeah.
barge in, don't let him run the show.
You got
If you
it.
have other
Yes,
questions,
you got
for me,
it.
you can talk to me later.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, I got it.
So it sounds like you're engaged in a little house project for veterans.
She likes me.
I am.
Yeah?
I am.
That's-
Counterclockwise.
Right now,
Counterclockwise. So you're going to Deidre's seat.
We'd like to
Counterclockwise. This is 12, so that's 11, 12, 1.
move forward. And right now, we don't have the land right now, but we have the funding. So that's where we stand.
Counterclockwise.
So
Tracy.
who is we?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Counterclockwise.
It's Ponza is
No,
the group,
that's
it's the
clockwise.
administrative group that runs Coyote Village
That's
in
the second
Thurston.
time.
And they're going to
screwed me up
administer it
today.
here. And we already have the funding.
Sorry, I
through
forgot you were new.
through the capital.
10 seconds.
So that's who Louis is, I'm sorry.
10 seconds.
I think it was counterclockwise.
Well, that's what I thought it was.
Maryland went that way.
No, Cheryl corrected me. Cheryl sent me this way, so I'll just go
You're
this way.
moving counterclockwise. All candidates are moving counterclockwise, right. So Deidre, you go over here.
That's
You're
her.
going to be here. Tracy, you are going to be right there.
That's where we were.
I'll keep your
You know, that's not a ringing
Keeping you on your
endorsement.
toes.
Well, I'll get there eventually.
Okay, does everybody have, I haven't started
That's
time
12
yet.
o'clock, to clarify.
Is everybody settled?
Hi, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good, thanks.
And yeah, all these are
Time
the same
starts.
questions that you've been posed before, except we haven't heard them. But I would certainly, anyone who wants to just.
I would like to
Sure.
ask something.
By all means.
There's a lot of talk about bringing business into town, and that's going to be our salvation. Is that what you see, and how do you feel about bedroom community?
Well, I'd say that economic development absolutely is part of the solution, but it has to be part of the whole picture. So, you know, I grew up in this town. I grew up going from my grandmother's house and walking up to the library and shelving books, and then going down the street and getting an ice cream. And we had that safety and security in this wonderful community. I watched people clean up their streets and take pride in our community, and that's something that I don't want us to lose. Right now, we are a bedroom community in some ways to Olympia and to the shipyards, but that's just one piece of our identity. As far as I'm concerned, we are a community in and of ourselves. Certainly that's one function that we take, but we also have people who live here, who work here, who love this place. We have the tourist aspect of it as well, and I think that the best thing that we can do is try to approach it with a sort of balance, because sustainable growth is going to mean not just counting on one large business to come in and provide all new jobs and save us, but that we are investing in our own community, investing in our friends and neighbors, to really make this a place where we can continue to form that community that's so important to me.
Anybody else?
So what's your vision for Shelton, say 50 years from now? What is the place going to look like?
I mean, as simple as it sounds, I want it to still be a beautiful place where people take care of each other and are focused on that sense of community. For me, that's really important. I think there is absolutely a balance to having growth and having that small town feel. I've had people come into town and say, I had no idea that there were still places where if you were broken down on the side of the road, somebody would stop and help you with your tire. And that's the kind of feel good that I think that comes from the type of people we attract and the type of community that we build, that I would hope that 50 years from now will be just the same as it is now.
So there's been some different plans, like
Sure.
the vision plan, the economic growth activity, I forget the name of it right now, and the retail coach the city's hired. So are those going to sit on a shelf, or what would you see being done with that?
I certainly hope not. I mean, one of the things that I think is so fantastic, I mean, I know that there are plans that we have to meet certain state and federal regulations. That's a given. But when it comes to a plan about who we want to be and what we want to look like, I think that's something that we have to continue to go back and revisit and build on the work that's already there. Of course, as things change, we're going to have to make tweaks to that plan. We're going to have to continue to solicit feedback from the people who live and work here. But I would hope that we could take components of all of those things and really continue to build on that to create a vision so we're not starting from scratch each time. And that's one thing that with the visioning plan, I was really excited to see that the city took that beyond just creating a plan, but also from there said, here are steps that we can make in the next 6 months, here are steps we can make in the next year, and then they did it, which in my experience is a rare occasion. So I was really excited to see that. For example, the public-private partnerships was really exciting.
What were the steps that they took?
For example, the public-private partnership at Smoke and Mo's, the outdoor patio, that I think is a perfect example. It was not something that specifically was spelled out in the plan. We're going to put a patio cafe here, but it was talking about creating spaces for people and a more walkable downtown and creating that vibrancy. And I think that was a really great way for the city to not financially invest, but to help business owners get to yes to create the vision of what was on this pretty paper.
We're not known for economic diversity
No.
Here, at least at this point, but we are known as a timber town. Do you think that's an asset or maybe a liability, or should we change our public image to attract economic diversity?
I think it depends on who you're talking with. It certainly is not only a part of our history, but Sierra Pacific is the largest stud mill in North America. It is a part of who we are. How we talk about that and how we structure the conversation, it is completely up to us in every aspect. We also are the #1 exporter of shellfish, not in the city, but in Mason County, in the world. Our resources are incredibly important, not only to the economics of those two industries, but also to, again, to the tourism that goes up the Hood Canal or the gateway to the Olympics. But we have a really unique group of people in our community. We have families that are here, we have retirees, so we've got medical that we have to think about, we have all the hospitality that surrounds that, we have service providers, as you know, a huge amount of service providers. Our big issue within the city that I see is a lack of zoned commercial space. And so when we do have businesses that come in and say, I'm interested in a different type of business than we have a tough time finding a spot for them. So I think it's something that we have to be really thoughtful about, creating a community by design and rather by default. And that's something I borrowed from a friend of mine, Scotty Mills.
Who, maybe not specifically, but what type of industry or business has been interested in that, has questioned Shelton and, about what we offer for them that we don't have?
Sure. Sometimes the things that I've seen have been production related, and so they've needed large manufacturing space. And it's not even necessarily, I guess, nuts and bolts manufacturing that you might see, but they just need a larger space in which to do their work. And so as they're expanding, they're running out of spaces to go. The port has done a really great job of identifying and creating some of those spaces, and that's in the city's UGA. But within the city itself, trying to find a large space for folks has been a real challenge.
Vacant space or a building?
Either or, and some of that has to do with the floodplains, I understand, and the way that things are currently zoned, particularly around downtown and First. But it's something that I think it has to be something we're considering as we're looking at who do we want to bring in, and I think that the economic development consultant that they're bringing in, as they identify who are good fits, then we have to look at where they're going to go.
Yeah, I'll limit it to the last one.
Sure.
Do you think that downtown and First is a good idea for production? I mean, we've got the search and rescue that's occupying a prime
At
spot down
Melchev?
there.
Absolutely.
And the reasoning was we need to rid it. And, you know, we don't want business as people be what people see as they travel through Highway 3. So I would think that downtown would be some kind of something that would be appealing to, hey, I would like to visit there.
I would think that the easy answer for me would be, the reason I said downtown is because they have a lot of vacancies right now, and that's where we've had folks looking at and running into some of those issues. In a perfect world, I would love to see more retail downtown, more activity downtown. We always hear people say, I miss the bowling alley, but that's just one small component of what we have going on in our downtown core. So finding a place for everybody that it makes sense is going to be something we have to really thoughtfully approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time's up. Candidates, move to your left. Let's try it that way, to your left. Sorry about that. To your left. 1 minute.
Well,
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
it is. Except everybody will be moving.
Thank you for moving counterclockwise.
Yep,
We
I
all
learned the
appreciate
first
that.
time,
Well, that's
the hard way.
I have a question if
Go ahead, it's fine.
when you come into town from the west, one of the first things you see is not as pleasing, maybe not the one at first, but as you move into town, it's hard to reverse a first impression. You have a house there, for instance, is halfway, actually completely.
That's a good question.
And that's true of several areas of town. There seems to have been some effort to demolish and raise these houses rather than have a vacant lot.
Are you talking about the house by Railroad?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm using that because that's the one that
Yes.
stands out, and I travel it
I
through
know
from the
it.
west
I know
every
the
day.
house.
But there are other houses also, and there was an effort to remove the houses, and now that effort seems to have waned. Do you have something else in mind that would kick that up a notch, and so we could?
We actually had a little idea about
8 minutes starts now.
so instead of doing things like the chamber does these galas where they bring their members in and they give out awards, but we were thinking if we took the money from something like that and maybe, because we have a lot of contractors in the town, maybe if we did like a weekend of helping the city where people could volunteer their time to improve the city, I think a lot of people would be willing to, especially if the city is not going to do anything. But I do think that there's a little bit of responsibility that lands on the city to improve the town. I mean, no one's going to want to buy that lot and fix up the house themselves unless they have a lot of money or time. So I think that the city should step up and be helping with situations like that. But
They got fined
It was
$3,000.
an oil sheen that came from a neighboring property.
Yeah, well, we got it, yeah, so.
I just wanted to clarify, because some of that land down there has some rights that Simpson, I think, still is responsible for.
yeah, I keep calling it Simpson, I'm sorry.
Let's see, okay. All right, I'd like to know, is affordable housing in Shelton a priority, and how would you undertake such a project? And do you support allocation of city land to build a tiny homes village for homeless veterans? And I might add that it's not only homeless veterans, but that would be the launching pad for other tiny homes.
I'll start with the tiny homes. I have seen the tiny home group in Olympia, and they've had a lot of problems with drugs, homeless people. I went with the Olympia Police, actually, and we took a look at it, and they've had so many issues they couldn't control with it. I think we need to look at what's going wrong there and what the differences and similarities are, and maybe see if that's going to happen here, because it seems like, you know, it could easily turn into something like that. And then what was your first question?
Basically about the affordable housing shelter.
Oh, I think it definitely is a priority for me, but I also think that affordable housing is different for every person. It's not the same. So I think also we need a variety of housing. We have a lot of lower income housing downtown, but I also think we need houses that young couples can move into. We don't have a lot of young couples moving into Shelton. They're all moving out. So if we, you know, create houses that mid-20s, low 30 people can afford, that's affordable to them too. So it's a very relative term.
Would you support the Shelton Hills development complex? And if so, what changes would you make to expedite it?
That's what I wanted to talk.
8 years on the back burner.
That's what I wanted to talk to that lady about. If they're dumping toxic stuff right next to it, that would be a little game changer.
Can I clarify on that?
Yes, because I'm not super familiar. I've been waiting to talk to her.
It's the wastewater treatment plant off of Webb Hill, which has always been a wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
And they're basically just putting in a lagoon to hold until they.
Okay, so I was right with the lagoon.
okay.
So this is not a significant thing, but the whole community has been up in arms after a public notice.
That's different, Will, than Goose Lake, right?
Yeah, substantially different. When you're
Yeah,
specifically
I didn't
talking
know
about
much
the
about
lagoon,
it.
They're talking about something.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you.
Webb Hill is quite a distance away.
Yeah, and Webb Hill is a county. It is already a water treatment facility. Just people getting arms over nothing.
Yeah, Facebook.
So with
People always
regards to
get heated.
Shelton Hills, then, how does that happen? Does it happen? What has to happen
dumping?
to make it Shelton Hills development?
Oh, that is something I also want to look a little bit more into. I'm not sure why I know it's a little bit, the city has been blaming the private side of it a little more, so I'm not sure exactly what the issues are, but I do support the Shelton Hills because it brings in a variety of housing. Like I said, not just affordable housing like we think of. And so I would like to see it built. I think it would bring in more people. Maybe we could come out of being a bedroom community, people can move here, open businesses, things like that.
They had some hearings about that development, and, you know, people said, yes, this is a good idea, but clean up Goose Lake first, and no one wants to take responsibility for cleaning that up. The most recent Department of Ecology public meeting that was going to be here in Shelton got canceled, and it was supposed to be rescheduled.
Never was. That's definitely something I'd want to look more into before I give a definitive answer, saying where all the stuff's coming from. I'd like to understand it better before I would put blame on anybody if no one wants to take the blame.
What I've heard is a lot of what is in the ground there was from Rainier.
Yes, I heard that just now at that table too, so I would like to look into that more for sure.
If I can put in a plug here for Shelton Hills, because I think that will answer some of our problems by broadening the tax base and also concentrating residential development in an area while still maintaining the rural character of the county. I would thought that would be a prime answer to that problem. So I'm hoping that you will support. People say they're in support, but they're not really active in that support. And PUD and DOT are two of the roadblocks, and then the city has a recent
1 minute. 1 minute.
Gotcha.
So, that's not a question. It's just
Thank you, I appreciate it though.
I guess the opening question was, and I should say, why are you running for the city of Shelton Council, and what are your major goals?
I feel like a broken record because my major goal is why I started running. I would like to improve the permitting. I actually just talked to someone yesterday about how they're having issues with permitting because they had their plans, they had to fix their plans and then they sent it back in, but the city told them they could start building next week, but the city engineer, city planner, whatever, he is on training this week, so cannot approve anything, and then the next week and a half or so he's on vacation, so nobody can approve anything for 3 weeks. That puts a big stop on building. It it affects not only the people trying to open their business, but they have a roofer coming, they have concrete people coming, so it pushes everything back. And this is such a big problem with Shelton. People don't want to come work here. I know businesses who have had to beg contractors to come here because they won't come to Shelton because it's so difficult.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good enough to help me out.
1 minute to
I'm
move.
running out of questions. I came close. Yeah, that was good. The clarification was good. And
There was
it's
confusion there between the Goose Lake at Shelton Hills and the
Welcome, Joe.
Good evening.
So
the
always
lagoon.
nip that in the bud because otherwise it gets a life of its own. Hi,
Tim?
Tom.
Tom, Joe. Good to meet you. Hi.
Bill.
Hi. Yeah. You don't have a name tag on, and I'm trying to work off of memory here.
Oh, don't try that.
10 times better than
That was close.
Tim, Tom.
The biggest thing about moving into a town, everybody only has to learn your name,
Yeah.
and then you have to learn everybody else's name. The weight is equal.
You have an East Coast accent.
Yeah.
Very astute of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming here. We have some questions that you probably have heard, and maybe some questions that you haven't.
Okay.
But you are a veteran.
I am.
All right. What branch?
Air Force.
Okay.
Eric, you have 12 seconds.
That's still okay.
Okay.
All right.
Gee, thanks.
To your left. To your left. One to
we'll
your
go-
left.
Tom, you were
Bob,
I
you have
know, I
4
was-
seconds. You have 4 seconds.
He's not going to tell us.
Time's up.
Tiny home villages. We're building 8 tiny
8
home
minutes
villages
starts
in
now.
Yes.
Actually, within the city limits, and we're still involved in that and negotiation with the city at this time.
Okay.
There have been some obstacles and some concerns raised, even by some of the candidates here, about the troubles that might entail and might result in a higher crime or so on. And I think mistakenly that's been associated with Coyote Village, which is our model, in Thurston County, because I have a lot of experience with that development. So I would hate to see a bad rumor go and say this is a bad idea. But right now we're up to a point where we're negotiating with the city. Let me rephrase that. We're asking the city to donate a piece of land that's already picked out. And they have some apprehension about doing so. If you were elected, we are already fully funded, by the way. We're ready to build.
Okay.
Would you support the allocation of land by the city to a nonprofit recognized that has already done one tiny home?
So, without seeing the plans and having, the ground up relationship established, what you say sounds fantastic, right? And as a veteran, absolutely, I'd want to support fellow veterans and making sure that there's a home available. Now, that being said, I'd like to understand the city's apprehensions better, and I don't know what those are. I haven't heard them yet. I've definitely heard you speak, and like I said, what I hear you say sounds great. And as you outline it, yeah, I'd be supportive of it. However, I don't have all the facts in front of me, and I can't really make that decision based off of this just alone. And I think that just kind of goes back to how I would make any decision here. Is that I would weigh out both sides, and if it's reasonable to go one way, then that's the way I think I would go and support. Other way, like I said, that's kind of the answer I give you.
Based on the merits of the issue, you
Yeah.
make a decision as opposed to the other.
Yeah, I'd definitely be weighing out all the facts and the data, and make the best decision based on that. So.
Tom, I'd like to ask something.
Please.
How would you go about incorporating more houses into the city limits? We're growing, but there's this real resistance to, grab anything outside. And yet we're providing for them. And usually we have a carrot, we have sewer, water that we could provide. Well, right now we're providing that, and they're not having to enter into the city, be incorporated. How do you feel for that? How do you feel about that? And what ways do you see that we can entice people to, or areas to incorporate in the city?
You're talking about annexation?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. I almost thought you were going to, like, how do we put houses on the vacant lots that are in the city? Okay, just want to make sure. No, it's okay. I just want to make sure I understood you right. So annexation. I think the first thing we need to do is create a friendly environment to do business. And I'm from what I hear when I'm doorbelling and talking to folks, it takes a long time to get a permit. Permits are expensive. It's not a great process, and they waste a lot of time. And I could have been building 4 months ago. I've heard a lot of those comments. So to me, that starts with a process piece. Like, what does it take to do business in the city of Shelton? How do I get a permit to build my house? And you should be able to work through that very clearly. Any contractor should be able to understand that. Implementing tools to make our permitting process more efficient. Those are little things in my opinion, but there's really nothing stopping us, in my opinion, from doing those things either. So I think you start with that, create the right environment that people want to work there or work with you because you're there and you're supporting that, as opposed to, go ahead.
Interrupt that?
Go for it.
So, percentage-wise, do you think that you're getting a large percentage of people making comments like that? Or do you think instead that's a point of argument for why to lean towards no permit fees, it's always the city's fault, and there's a current in this town of tearing apart the city.
Maybe if I could make a suggestion.
Okay.
And make the questions really brief,
Okay.
because otherwise we're going to have
Sure.
to talk. So.
Okay, well, anyway.
And I guess I would say, from what I've seen, just talking to people, and that's really kind of what I have to go on right now. I'm not a contractor, so I haven't specifically had that same dealing. So I'm assuming when they're conveying their issues with me that it is true, and but I don't know for a fact, I guess, that it's an argument towards lower rates or something like that. It sounds to me like there are some things that aren't working as smoothly as they could, and that would be something I would want to help the city focus on.
So what's your vision for the city, say, 50 years from now?
Oh man. More than anything is just, are we going to be able to ride out the next storm that comes? We have debt. We have plans to grow. We're working on plans to grow for economic growth and whatnot. But I would like to see Shelton enter into a strong, sustainable community. As we move forward, we can afford to operate and maintain what we have with some growth on top of that. So as we build new streets, as we bring in potentially new business across Highway 101, that stuff is going to solidly be here for the next 50 years. And like I said, continued growth. Shelton will be Shelton. And that's take the George Jetson concepts out of it maybe, and what do I see here? You could go crazy with that thought, but definitely I see kind of keeping the heritage here in Shelton of the type of community, the gateway to the Olympics, and the timber town mentality and the feeling that is here, the small community feeling would be great to continue to have that 50 years from now, but one that's sustainable, one that when we do hit the next economic recession, we're not going bankrupt, and it isn't going to slide into a huge depressed area. We want to kind of keep the lights on and keep trucking forward, and that's what I want to see.
I have a contention that we have a lot of underprivileged people here.
1 minute.
1 minute. We're not going to get a chance to do this, so I'm going to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
I'll just jump to the chase. I'd like to attract people who have people of means, so we can balance out a part of the situation with a little bit more upper scale. And maybe at some time we can talk to you about how we go about that, how to attract those people, because right now there's people looking for affordable homes, and that's fine, but we need another upscale market if we're going to incur the cost.
30 seconds.
Yeah, interesting.
I'll talk to you about that.
Happy to do it, yeah. All right. I didn't hear the cowbell yet.
No, they said 1 minute. I just didn't want you to get
All right.
too far into the...
More cowbell.
Will had a question.
Go ahead, Will.
So, and I'm going to ask you because I'm going to lob these at some others, but of the city's top 4 budget priorities for 2018, which do you feel is the most important?
Can that... I think public safety is important to me.
1 minute to move.
You know,
Stand up and stretch. Candidates, move to your left.
and it may be a little bit of being involved in the fire department and whatnot. Public safety is important, but I think we can get our hands wrapped around some of the smaller issues we have around that. Technology is also important as well, and it's not new computers for everybody in the office and things like that. Early on when we started this, it was things like direct deposit for their paychecks and more efficient processes there, the electronic systems and things like that that'll make business opportunities a little bit more efficient. So kind of public safety and technology upgrades, or transfer of technology into our business processes, I think those are important. So blah, 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 blah.
Thank you, Joe.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Tom?
Nice to see you. I didn't know you had that past history.
Eric, 10 seconds. Eric, 10 seconds.
And with Green Diamond.
Yes.
I didn't know. Just learned something.
And before that, I was 12 years in Northeast Washington, above Newport. You know where Newport's at?
Yeah,
so.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody want to go? Or I'll
8 minutes starts now.
kind of ask this because we actually, you and I might have traded.
Let us to the editors.
At some point.
Okay.
And so I appreciate the privilege to talk to you. I was wondering, you're obviously a timber person, you have a timber career, but do you think that there's any negative impact in the city defining itself as a timber town in terms of not attracting new and diversified economic drivers?
I don't think anyone anymore would define, I do not define Shelton as a timber town. I define Shelton as a town that's in the middle of a very rich wood basket. And it'd be a shame that Shelton history, further economic development, would not include wood products in the mix. And, you look at Aberdeen, you look at other towns, and the wood products industry is not what it was, but it's still a major employer in this area, especially in rural communities. And I would never think that I would push or would want Simpson or Shelton to be a timber town, but I'd also not want the logical siting of a mill that produces, takes what I consider a very green product, produces a product for housing to make housing more affordable, would not be hopefully ever not be part of this town. And hopefully companies would decide that this is a good location, like SPI did, like Simpson did before, to continue that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How do we fund education and our property taxes in check without cutting our school budgets?
Well, that must be a question after you got your property taxes this year. I think, first of all, education is, some of that will be reduced next year, hopefully, because that's the state portion that went up this year, down next year. So hopefully it'll be reduced a little bit. Education should be, it's defined as a state responsibility, at least basic ed. Property taxes in this county are fairly high. I think the best thing we can do is the answer to a lot of things. One is encourage development of all our industrial and commercial properties as best we can. Encourage more building in town, and I like new developments, but I live in an old neighborhood. There's nothing that makes me smile more as we had 3 infillings and vacant lots around me, and that it just, young families, and it just makes you feel good, and maybe a little bit more happy paying that property tax than if you live in a neighborhood where every other house is vacant, which our neighborhood was for a while during what, 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm not answering your question directly because I think property taxes, we just need to be efficient in what we do. That applies to the school district, that applies to the city, and we have to hold people accountable. The state should be funding basic ed, and I think rural communities in the past years have been really short short by the state because Shelton's rate is extremely high per thousand compared to urban rates. And if it's a state cost, we've been overpaying and they've been underpaying. I think the state budget tried to rectify that, and we should continue that. And hopefully our rates will come down and the state responsibility will be equally across the state.
So if you don't mind,
please.
go ahead and ask this, because I meant to ask it to a couple other candidates, and I have a very specific reason for asking. Of the City of Shelton's 2018 proposed budget priorities, which do you feel is the most important and why?
The first priority, I believe, infrastructure was fourth. I'm trying to remember what first was. Roads was in there. I'll tell you what I believe their first priority should be, and I know there was four and I can't remember what they were. I believe the City of Shelton, and this, I talked to this other table, this is not a shiny answer. It's not, we need to fix your roads. From my standpoint, I'm have finance in my background. We need to determine where we're at today. And I think there's still some questions on that as far as our long-term debt, other liabilities, and sustainability of our general fund and other revenue sources. I think is real important when the council comes in, and Bob Jean talked to, he's talking to all the candidates, and he kind of alluded to the same thing. We need to define where we are today before we really honestly set priorities of where we're going. We have not had a financial statement, audited financial statement for 2 years. It's ongoing. There's reasons, because we've had a constant turnover of the finance director. So it's not faulting anybody. It's just the facts of life. And so that would be a high priority for me, is just knowing financially where we are before we, maybe dig a good hole, but we need to know where we're at before we start digging or before we start doing anything else. So that's not what your question, Will, but that's my answer. Okay.
Expenses keep going up. There's no getting around. The costs will always go up. And if you notice, the county, I'm going to use them as an example, what they did was basically cut some services in order to balance the budget. Would you advocate for it, or would you agree to cut services to balance the budget, or would you increase the taxes on the people?
There's a third option. Please. And that's something we really need to work on is efficiencies in providing the same services for less money. And I think, that's always brought up. It's hard to do. I'll give you a specific example that at least I know about. I don't know the particulars, but it's something, it gives an example, is when we sold the solid waste business, which you may agree or disagree, but it's sold. There's about $500,000 of what I call indirect costs that were being charged for city support to the solid waste business. Well, once they sold it, that came back to the city, and that's an example of, again, there's efficiencies that we need to look at. Is those people are no longer supporting solid waste. They need to be doing high priority work, and that's getting to your question. They could be providing the services that we felt we need to increase, maybe additional time at a permit desk, additional time. Probably be hard for a police officer to come out of that group, but that's the type of thing we have to make decisions on. We save costs, and we did save some costs selling the solid waste business. We need to consciously know what costs those are, so maybe we can make decisions on how to use those funds to support additional services or expand services. So I think that's an example of one thing where you could do both without increasing taxes. I personally think Sheltonites are really, between sewer rates, water rates, the increase in the Shelton school levy, I'd be very hesitant to increase taxes. Very hesitant. Is that it? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is that six? We have one more? Just one more?
We got more than one.
How many people are left? How many
There's one, two more.
question because it opens up a door for an extended answer that gives you. So,
See the reason for my question. That's why I feel it's very important.
I think that should be the lead-off question because, yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
Let's see. I mean, I could give them the 4.
No.
But no, I want to know who's actually.
I think they're running for candidates that they should know what the priorities are for themselves. Hey, Eric.
Oh no, this is the tough seat.
Oh, there's no campaigning here.
I thought that's what we were here for.
Nice to see you.
You too.
We
Hi.
have some questions for you.
Sure.
Please, lead off.
Eric, I've been asking everybody, of the City of Shelton's 2018 proposed budget priorities, which do you feel is the most important?
In the 2000 budget priorities,
2018 budget priorities.
I've seen the budget. I haven't seen the budget priorities. I've seen the budget. But our priorities should be, our roads. We have gravel roads in the city limits. We should not have gravel roads. We have. I believe we should budget. If I had a priority for the budget, it would be to support the nonprofits in town a little bit. It'd also be the abatement program. We have some pretty dangerous buildings. That bowling alley, there's no reason, we've been talking about it for 4 years. I've been going to the meetings that we can't find $60,000, $70,000 to tear that dangerous thing down before somebody's killed. And there's so many different budgets. You've got the sewer budget and the general fund, but as my biggest priority is I like more officers on the streets. We only have 16 officers divided by 3 shifts. There's not very many officers for 3,950 homes, businesses, and 10,000 residents. I believe that we need to give Chief Moody 6 more officers. We could do it 2 a year for the next 3 years.
Chief Moody just went before the SBI actually and got $2,700 to bring up a couple of part-time officers in the city schools. How would you propose to pay for the 2 officers or more officers that you'd like to hire?
Oh, okay, so the school is going to pay for the officers.
Right.
Yes,
On those,
correct.
yeah.
We're paying the training for the officers. But as for the 2, we need to prioritize our budget. I've been telling everybody that's asked me this question is we've increased our administration budget in the city, not public works, not accounting, actual administration budget 103% in 2 years. Our police budget's gone up 3%. Our courts maybe, I think it was 1%. We've lost, some other departments have lost some money. I think we need to prioritize. We do have some great people working at the city, but do we truly need all these positions? We hired a lot of people in the last year in administration.
In administration.
Yes.
Didn't we just have to lay off a bunch of officers because our budget was...
Not the city, county.
County.
Yes, county's a different story. City's not, to what I've been reading, is not in a terrible position. I mean, we're okay. We've got a reserve, and we haven't dipped into it in 2 years. So I don't think the city is hurting. But yeah, I understand the county is.
What's your thoughts on the debt? And is that clear, and how do we address it?
The $44 million in debt?
Or if that's...
Okay. But we do have any fund balance in every single department.
Is there a resolution that says you have to have a certain percentage of the budget put aside for reserves?
I'm not sure about that, but we did lower it once when Dave O'Leary was still here. But I haven't heard anything about it since. So I could probably find out, but we haven't. I know we have not dipped into that reserve fund for the general reserve. Yes, since I believe 2015, we took about $300,000 out balance of budget. We have not had to do that since.
There's a lot of the city held me. They're a taxing agency, and that's the way they get their revenue. That's pretty much it. Fees and taxes, and maybe you can grow out of it. But do you have any other ideas how we can create more or new revenue streams in the short term without looking out 20 years? Do you have any ideas along those lines?
Well, we have to grow out of it. I mean, we have to build. We have to have more people paying paying this debt back. We need businesses, and retail is going away. We know it's little by little it's going away because of Amazon and everything else. We need to look, hopefully this economic development company we hired to go out and tell us what what can we do here? What do we have property for? And to help us decide what we can do here in Shelton for industry and business. And I think that we're going to have to come up with something. I mean, we're going to need, hotel. That's something that you can't get on Amazon. Service oriented. Just turn our downtown into the entire downtown into maybe a antique mall. But it's difficult to restore some of these buildings downtown. We've got some pretty tough codes. I mean, we need to make sure our buildings are safe and our people are safe, but our national building code that we follow is pretty strict. We don't have to adopt that every year. We can have our own code or find a code that's a little bit less, cumbersome.
So you adopt the international building code or not the international building code?
We don't have to. We do. We adopt it every year. We don't have to. We could have a code that's less. We want people to be safe. We don't want people dying in fires, but we've got 1,200 square foot buildings downtown with all windows in the front, and people are being told you need a sprinkler in here. Some buildings need sprinklers. I don't think a 1,200 square foot building with all window front needs a sprinkler at $75,000 cost. I mean, that just makes it unaffordable for somebody to do anything there.
So I've heard it said that residential housing at best is revenue neutral. Do you think Shelton Hills is going to pay their way for additional burden on infrastructure?
Well, growth should pay for growth. We shouldn't be spending $35 million of our money as citizens to build for something that may or may not happen. If Shelton Hills says, okay, I'll come in if you pitch in this, fine. You sign an agreement, a development agreement, and then maybe we'll do something. But to build, it's not field of dreams. If you build it, they're not going to come. When they sign an agreement saying they're going to come, then maybe we should help them with some infrastructure. But they should pay for their own infrastructure.
If you're able to forecast, when does Shelton Hills happen?
Gosh, I'd hope so soon. But I hear rumors of a hotel coming real soon. So, but I would hope really soon. I asked, what my brain's dying, Steve the other day, and he says, well. So I think something's coming, but it's hush hush. I would hope soon. I really would hope soon. I know that let's get started with some big projects, and then the houses are going to come over many years, and I do believe that when we start building those houses, maybe our rent will start easing up in other places, so we can have some more affordable housing.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I might just stay here. We're done. Oh no, one more table. I thought I started there. Thanks, guys.
Now we get Tracy.
Well, hi. Tracy.
You're back.
Well, she told me to come over here, and then she told me to go there. It was a test. I know, it's just a test to see how friendly I am. Oh, hi. Good. I don't think I've met you before.
I'm Dave Daggett. I'm with the Mason County Democrats and
Oh, nice.
25th
I've
LD.
probably met you before then. Yeah. Okay. Are we starting? Have we started? Okay, ask me questions. Quick. I got a lot to say.
So I've been asking everyone, of the 2018 proposed budget priorities, which do you feel is the most important?
I was, actually, I was part of the group, and those priorities were the ones that I recommended. And so we've accomplished some of those already, and we're in the process of accomplishing them already. So I felt it was really important, probably number one was probably for the to get our technology up to speed, to get our permitting more up to date, so that there aren't such long waiting lists. And plus, it isn't a good look for a city when we have all of our building permit tracking on an Excel spreadsheet. So I feel like it was important for our staff to get our phone system up to date, to get our permit tracking up to date. I've been talking too much, I guess. And it's a new thing that we even have automatic payroll now. Before, up until a few months ago, we had, the written out checks, and we had to, we lost a lot of staff hours because everybody was running their checks over. So it's more efficient that way. So that was something that was very important. They're all important, but that was probably my number one.
So technology.
So, if you had a pet project that you were going to pursue, what would that be for Shelton?
If I had a pet project, can I have a couple of them?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Two of the things that I proposed when I was on the commission that I was unable to get support for, and which I felt were very doable, very exciting, and would have made a huge difference to our community, were number one, I identified some property that is city-owned that I thought that we should donate to the Mason County Historical Society Museum. It was up in the Hillcrest area, close to Overlook Park. And by putting it there, it would bring some much needed investment up into that area of town. It would keep the museum in town. It would solve their building needs or their property needs, and it would build on the historic tourism that we have and that we do promote. Another thing is a pet project was where the Park Manor Hotel is, that burned down years and years ago behind the Ritz. I worked with a couple of nonprofits, with Homes First as well as the Low Income Housing Institute, to draw up some plans. That also is city-owned property, and we had identified that we could house up to 20 single adults or couples in a 20-unit building there, and I felt that would be a really good use of taxpayer money. It would once again provide some much-needed development in a rundown area of town. And number three was, and is forever, I feel like we missed a huge, huge opportunity with the Simpson Rail and the Roundhouse. It could have benefited our city so much by keeping freight mobility as an option. There are a number of industries, up-and-coming industries, such as cross-laminated timbers, that are dependent on rail mobility, and I don't know if we'll be able to come back from that. As well as the Roundhouse, we had identified many options for that, and probably one of the most important thing, as well as the running of the railroad, is the fact that we had some interest from the colleges, the technical colleges around the area, and from the high school, to provide some STEM training for students, which, we've all identified that's a very important part of our focus of education now. And there are a lot of technical skills that are needed through running a railroad. So those options may no longer be on the table, but that breaks my heart, because I was very passionate about those, and I feel like the city lost a great opportunity.
There is a group that was
There is, and I'm
the scenic.
Yeah, and I'm on that board.
Scenic.
Yeah, I'm on that board. I haven't given up yet, so as I say, it's still a passion.
We went to a spaghetti dinner where they were
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah.
Where does our economic future lie? Possibly. First in the short term, and then in the long term.
I think it's, I was being recorded here. I believe that it's a great step forward if we follow through with the recommendations or ideas that this targeted study has, that the consultants that we've hired. As far as I know, I've been in Shelton for 30 years, and we've been part of the Economic Development Council, and we've been part of the plans of our forest industries in town and all of that. But as far as I know, this is the first concerted vision visioning process that we have for our city. And I feel like we have to pay attention to what comes through that suggestion. I feel very proud of the fact that we changed the zoning to allow the marijuana grows in the city, and I would like for us to look at more areas, and it's not currently a legal use, but if we could maybe look at more innovative products such as hempcrete, which is a building material that is a byproduct of, or it's a hemp product. I believe strongly that in the 40s, when we had the greatest per capita number of PhDs in our city, there's no reason we can't go there again and look for our economic development on the heels of innovation. So we just have to be ready for that.
So you're saying more manufacturing of marijuana in the short term or marijuana-related projects as opposed to service industries?
Yes.
You're trying to look for-
I'm looking at more innovative, far-reaching, looking forward, not just falling back on what we know or looking towards what we hope, but really putting some effort out there to be creative and go after new products and new ideas so that we're not just waiting for times to catch up with us, that we're creating the times.
So you mentioned Economic Development Council a few times. Do you know why the director left?
I don't. I don't know. I wouldn't tell you if I did. What are you talking about?
I think Glenn just wanted to go play.
Come on, do we have another question? Bring those questions on. Ah,
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, I'm a quick talker.
Time's up.
Thank you.
We've gone through.
Those guys are still talking. Are you sure you don't want to talk to me some more?
So this concludes the speed dating forum for the City of Shelton candidates. Let's give all the candidates a round of applause. Thank you guys so very much. And remember, get out the vote. Good night. All right. All the participants.